Okay, let's get into it. The date today is December 28, 2025.
3 days out.
3 days. And if you're tuned in with us, you know exactly what that means. You are basically standing right in the eye of the storm.
It really feels like that. This is the final 72-hour countdown to something that still feels, well, impossible.
D.L.B's hard stop retirement, January reached 2026. This whole year, I mean, the 16 full albums, this absolute mountain of what he called truth documentation. It was all supposed to be the perfect, controlled exit.
The ultimate artistic mic drop, planned down to the second.
And yet, here we are. We're closer to that finish line than ever, and the whole narrative around him feels more chaotic, more vibrant even.
And definitely more uncontrolled than it was, say, 11 months ago when that first album dropped. It's completely spun out.
Exactly. So our mission today, it's not really to analyze the music itself. We've been doing that all year exhaustively.
Track by track, yeah.
Today, we have to talk about the phenomenon he created by trying to impose total silence.
That is the crucial distinction right there. He planned this structured, controlled, completely silent exit. The idea was to insulate his legacy.
A fortress of silence.
Fortress of silence. But the sheer, I don't know, the velocity and the vulnerability of the material he put out, combined with this vanishing act, it just created a massive digital vacuum.
And that vacuum was immediately filled.
Instantly. Filled by this totally uncontrollable digital phenomenon that the fans, this hyper-engaged community, have started calling the Echo Archive.
The Echo Archive is the evidence. And for us, we think it's the ultimate expression of the central idea we really need to explore today.
Batesian Resonance.
Batesian Resonance. It's a term that, it sounds like something you'd hear in a physics lecture.
Right, something about acoustics. But its application here is purely digital, and it is absolutely crucial to understanding why D.L.B's legacy is probably going to survive the algorithms.
Okay, so walk us through the definition, because this really challenges the whole way the music industry normally handles legacy.
Well, at its core, we're defining Batesian resonance as a form of digital mimicry. You know, think of Batesian mimicry in nature, where a harmless species evolves to look like a dangerous one to gain protection.
Okay, I see. A decoy.
Exactly. In this context, it's the process where all these independent voices, the fan community, the theorists, these incredibly dedicated creators, they start to manufacture counter-narratives. They make new digital artifacts that are so compelling, so aesthetically rich, and so, structurally aligned with his original vision that they act as decoys.
A decoy against what, though? Because on the surface, this could just sound like a really, really active fandom.
It's way more strategic than that. It's a decoy against the corporate algorithms. It's a defense mechanism against that whole industry infrastructure that is specifically designed to monetize, to dilute, and ultimately to control the perception of an artist's exit.
Especially a dramatic, ambiguous exit like this one.
Oh, especially this one. The system salivates over an exit like this.
So the structure is, D.L.B. spent his entire career building this fortress, right? 11SIX Music, Orison Holdings. He's trying to subvert the system from the inside by building his own closed loop.
Right.
But when he plans to abandon that fortress, the fans realize it's now vulnerable. So they build a digital decoy fortress right next to it to confuse the enemy.
Precisely. His career was the perfect case study because he gave the industry nothing to work with. No interviews, no physical presence, no posthumous material lined up, no endless reissues.
And starve them of content.
He did. And that forced the fans to create the control mechanism themselves. They had to define the narrative of his absence rather than letting the industry define his retirement for him.
That's the resonance in action. His original mission was truth documentation through sound.
And now the fans are continuing that mission. But it's not through sound. It's through this deep, almost obsessive aesthetic documentation of his intentional absence.
It's a powerful baton pass.
It really is. Now, before we dive into the actual material here, and we have a lot of really specific fan creations to get through, we have to do the mandatory thing.
Oh yeah, the disclaimer. We have to be crystal clear about our position here.
We are just obsessive analysts. We are not insiders.
Totally. So for the record, the Deep Dive aPodcast and Neon Core Media, we have no ownership of or any official connection to D.L.B. himself.
None. Or to his holding company, Orison. Or V2V by Debates, 11SIX Music, Neon Vision Studios.
That whole ecosystem, we're not a part of it. We are independent commentators, and we're reacting only to what's public, what's been leaked, and all this incredible fan-generated material.
Yeah.
We're in this deep dive right alongside you.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning of the end, the architecture of his exit.
The architecture of silence. And, the genesis of this Echo archive, we've talked about VGV before, Visions to Ventures. It was never just a label. It was a philosophy.
He didn't just structure a company. He engineered an entire closed-loop system. And it was designed for one thing: protection, control, and absolute creative autonomy.
11SX Music was the creative bunker.
Right. RSN Holdings was the impenetrable legal wall around it. And then you had Melodies of Mercy Publishing, which held the rights so fiercely that no outside entity could ever touch his masters or his messaging.
And that structure, it was never built for, like massive growth or scaling, was it? It was built purely to protect the vulnerability of the artist inside.
Its only function was to let him create that truth documentation through sound without the predatory industry systems getting their hooks in. He was basically fortifying his own vulnerability.
And that deep need for protection that leads directly to this idea of the archivist's exit.
Right. He's not just retiring. He's spiritually disappearing on January 1st. This is not some gentle farewell tour with a T-shirt cannon.
No, it is the exact opposite of the long goodbye. He pulls off the most ambitious, demanding, you could even say narcissistic release schedule in modern history.
16 full albums in 1 year.
And he intended for that immense musical inheritance to be a map.
A dense map. A challenging one. Sometimes it's a completely contradictory map for the listener to follow, just to document his journey and let you extract the truth he laid out.
But the final act, the ultimate move to control his own story. It's that rumor we've all obsessed over from the "Thank you for listening" outro.
The final line, chilling, he took the hard drive.
That is the nuclear option.
It is the metaphorical equivalent of burning the library down on his way out the door. By taking the hard drive, which we have to assume means the master copies, the outtakes, the demos, the whole unreleased history, he ensures zero posthumous monetization.
No box sets in 5 years.
No AI sampling of his vocals for some new single.
No dilution of the legacy by some opportunistic legal executive who finds an old demo. He's protecting the very integrity he fought for.
But that act of ultimate control creates this central conflict, doesn't it? He spends an entire year documenting his truth, demanding we listen, and then he turns around and tells us his core belief is actually rooted in the silence that comes after.
He literally told us to prioritize his deletion over his publications. He says the published work is the map, but the truest version of him lives in the drafts, in the silences, in the moments he chose to withhold.
He wants his absence to speak louder than his art.
Which is, it's deeply narcissistic, but it's also profoundly challenging. It's the ultimate loyalty test for a fandom this dedicated. He gives them a mountain of material and then says, by the way, the real treasure is the gaping hole I'm about to leave behind.
And that, right there, that is the genesis of the Echo archive.
It has to be.
Because D.L.B. insisted on silence as his final statement, the audience's natural, just, necessary response to process that is to fill the vacuum with echoes. They're creating these independent, complex, decentralized counter-narratives.
The Batesian Resonance.
That's it. They're defining the legacy outside of the controlled silence he tried to impose on them.
The only way to truly honor an artist who demands silence is to scream the truth about that silence, but in a way that the marketplace can't categorize or sell.
And they didn't just scream, they started building digital monuments.
So let's look at that. The digital shrines and the fan hubs, the immediate echo.
Right. When an architect designs an intentional void like this, the first thing the community has to do is just the collective psychological processing.
They take the raw, fragmented stuff he gave them and the leaks, and they immediately start converting it into these organized, shared, almost mythical narratives. It's the necessity of fan mythology. It turns trauma into structure.
And the aesthetic of these digital shrines is so key. They aren't just, message boards. They are intensely curated, almost secretive, ritualistic spaces for collective grief and reflection.
And preservation.
They look and feel like they belong in his universe.
Okay, let's start with maybe the most aesthetically intense one, the Candleloop server on Discord. This thing is a masterclass in hyper-specific coded design. It's built for deep immersion, to separate you from the noise of the regular internet.
The visual language hits you immediately. It's all obsidian black, contrasted only by this muted, deep violet.
The black is the finality, right? The void of his departure. But the violet, that suggests something spiritual. Mourning, but also this deep emotional sensitivity. It's like a visual for dark, painful processing.
And the features inside are deliberately ritualistic. They have a permanent voice channel just called Loop 11.
Loop 11, of course.
It's a constant reminder of the 11SIX universe, his core brand, but also this existential idea that they're all perpetually stuck in his creative orbit. Loop 11 suggests they're trapped in the endless repetition of his final statement. They don't want the loop to break.
And the icon for the channel is an eternal flame.
Which symbolizes that the memory, and more importantly, the vulnerability of Daniel Bates the human, is still burning, still alive, even if D.L.B, the public persona, is being extinguished.
But the audio prompt, that's the thing that really gets me. That's the most profound sign of this resonance.
When you enter that voice channel, there's this blurred, reversed vocal loop playing very softly in the background.
What is that supposed to be?
It suggests that the true confession, the ultimate vulnerability, is still there. But you have to actively work to hear it. You have to invert reality, listen backwards, strain your ears to extract the truth that he hid. It's a sonic ritual.
So the whole server is like a digital safe house. It's secretive because the public algorithmic sphere is about to be just polluted with generic tributes and career retrospectives that completely miss the point.
This is community-driven denial of his physical disappearance. It's a space they control.
Okay, so moving from that kind of ritualistic grief to more active myth building, let's talk about TYFL, Global, the revived fan wiki.
This is where Batesian Resonance really achieves the level of, like, an alternative historical archive.
The aesthetic itself tells a story. It's all grayscale tiles, a really stripped-down wiki structure. It suggests this isn't about marketing, it's about facts, documenting history.
But the power is in how they handle the source material. They take the official album cover art and they just rename it with these mythic labels.
Right. They strip the albums of their commercial titles. They restore what they see as a spiritual hierarchy. Bipolar Scorpio becomes the prophet, which is a nod to his predictive genius.
One of his early, grittier LPs becomes the hustler. They are actively defining his spiritual position in the canon. They're seizing control of the nomenclature.
But the most crucial artifacts on that wiki are the embedded screenshots, the ones showing official takedown notices from Orzen or 11SIX.
Crossed out with a bold red line.
That one visual act is such a profound statement.
It symbolizes defiance against corporate control in a single image. It's the fandom saying, we saw the corporate attempt to suppress this and we rejected it. The truth lives here, outside your legal jurisdiction, permanently marked as our victory against censorship.
And of course, in a fandom this obsessed with his new Eric symbolism, there's an Easter egg.
Always.
If you click on the album tile they've renamed Addict, a nod to one of his most vulnerable early tracks, it loads a countdown timer.
And it's not just counting down to January 1st. It's counting down specifically to 11:11 p.m. on December 31st, 2025.
The final hour, the final minute, all coded with his signature 11SIX number. It elevates the event from just a retirement into an impending spiritual reckoning. They are asserting their own timeline for his vanishing act.
That timing is everything. It shifts the focus from just a cessation of activity to a defined, ritualistic moment of transformation.
In this spiritualization, it leads us to the most overtly devotional shrine of them all, our prayer.live.
This is where fan engagement completely leaves the realm of commerce and just turns into a sacred act.
The visual is so powerful. It's a global map, subtly lit in the background. But the function is what stops you in your tracks. Pins light up on the map in real time all over the world, but only at 3:17 a.m. local time.
That 3:17 a.m. timestamp, it shows up so frequently in his work, always linked to these moments of deep crisis or isolation or spiritual reflection.
So by engaging at that specific painful time, the fan is inserting themselves into the emotional state that he documented. They are collectively participating in the moment of trauma.
And the purpose is explicit. It's indicating prayer submissions. The visuals, an old stained mic, hands clasped in prayer. The whole image is blurred, like you're seeing it through tears. It's all deliberate iconography.
They're turning the consumption of his art into a devotional practice. The deep dive isn't just listening anymore, it's intercession.
It's a fascinating inversion, isn't it? The fandom is praying for Daniel Bates, the man who documented his trauma, not streaming D.L.B, the global artist. This level of curation shows the community truly understood the core message. He documented trauma, and in response, they built an infrastructure for collective healing and preservation that functions entirely outside the system he was trying to escape.
It's a remarkable level of engagement. But we have to move beyond the digital screens now and see how this resonance starts to manifest physically.
Reimagined relics and the fan-made artifact packs. This is where the Echo archive becomes tangible. It moves from passive consumption to this active, visceral participation in defining the narrative of his pain.
The trauma in those final albums, the exhaustion, the isolation, the confession, it isn't just being analyzed anymore. It's being translated into these concrete, sometimes unsettling art objects.
It's not art appreciation. It's active participation in the pain and the process.
Okay, let's start with the animation, the visual artifacts that are processing his commercial success. The piece called Loop Ends in Fire.
So the scene is set in this long, dark hallway. It's lined floor to ceiling with gold records, the ultimate symbol of commercial triumph, of ego-driven validation.
The very thing he was rejecting.
Exactly. And the animation completely subverts it.
The visual twist is the melt effect. There's this red, flickering, emergency-style light, and under it, the gold records just liquefy, like candle wax.
And the choice of candle wax is so key. It implies sacrifice, something ephemeral. The success was temporary. It's being consumed by the flame of his final act.
The last shot is just a silhouetted mic stand, isolated in the dark. Then there's this rose animation that gradually wilts and dissolves into pixels.
It's a complete, concise eulogy for the D.L.B persona. The success meant nothing. The memory is dissolving. It's over.
Now contrast that visual fragility with the physical trauma documented in that unsettling sculpture, Autopsy of a Verse.
This piece embodies truth documentation through trauma in a way that is genuinely difficult to look at.
The visceral aesthetic is intentional. It's a human throat cavity, meticulously formed from jagged, cracked CDs and shattered iPhone casings.
The very technology that enabled his confession. The CDs for the physical archive, the iPhones for the constant digital self-censorship and anxiety we heard in some of those unreleased tracks.
So by using jagged, broken tech to form the throat, the artist is saying that the process of confession was itself violent and destructive. The pain isn't abstract. It's represented by fractured media.
And the detail is staggering. Lyrics are micro-etched onto the vocal cords, and they're distorted with these heat map overlays, as if the words themselves are causing fever, stress, physiological damage.
But the interactive element is what makes it so powerful.
The viewer-triggered audio. There's a hidden QR code, and when you scan it, it triggers whispers, distorted audio clips of his voice.
It makes the audience complicit.
Yeah.
You have to physically ask for the pain. You have to scan the code, lean in, and listen to the confession. It forces you to engage with the trauma documentation process actively and physically, not just passively.
It removes all distance between the art and the viewer. But maybe the most permanent manifestation of the Echo Archive is the #TYFLink tattoo movement.
This is archiving the memory outside the digital sphere entirely. A radical act of preservation.
The aesthetics of the fast-cut TikToks showing the process are vital. They all use this minimalist, raw typewriter font.
And critically, no punctuation, no context.
Think about that. Punctuation is structure, it's grammar, it's rules. By removing it, they are isolating the raw feeling, the unfiltered truth from any imposed narrative structure. It's just pure, visceral sentiment etched onto the body.
So the act of permanent inscription onto skin, the tattoo, it's the ultimate defiance against digital erasure. If D.L.B is digitally erasing himself by taking the hard drive, the fandom is using #TYFLink to ensure his words are physically archived on human skin.
The body itself becomes the final, immutable archive.
It's a beautifully painful form of loyalty. But that loyalty also expresses itself by filling in the narrative gaps he left, which brings us to fan fiction and myth building.
He left so much ambiguity. That final line from the 11 outro, "He gone again, this time feel different," that's not a mistake. It's an invitation for the fans to complete the story.
And they responded with these incredibly sophisticated narratives like The 12th Dream, D.L.B Reborn.
The creative framing there is magnificent. It links his legacy to the future. The chapter headers are all styled as soul subway stops,
Suggesting a structured path forward, a journey through the city where he spent so much of that isolated time. And they use these ghost silhouette overlays on K-pop magazine pages.
suggesting his spirit, his influence, his legacy is being carried forward within that K1A orbit, the broader soul aesthetic he helped cultivate. He's being resurrected through influence.
Then you have the fan theories that go beyond just discussion and become these full-blown interactive games, ARGs.
Alternate reality games, like the final Cypher Theory drop poster.
This goes way beyond static interpretation. The poster design itself is dense. It's a desert map, dotted lines like a treasure map, symbols layered from the thank you for listening skits.
But the interactive hook is the QR codes that link to hidden voicemail folders.
It transforms narrative analysis into an active, collective scavenger hunt. It replaces the official rollout with a fan-driven quest for the real final truth. You have to find the poster maybe on a Dallas street corner or in a soul cafe, scan the code. listen to a garbled voicemail to get the next clue.
It forces you to engage online and in the real world. It cements the Echo archive as a multi-platform phenomenon. The fans are defining the final truth of D.L.B., regardless of what he intended by taking that hard drive.
And the final layer of this is the post-Echo creations.
Right. The fan attempts to replicate or continue his creative process. This proves the power of the Echo to transcend the original source material.
The D.L.B. clone freestyles and the 4am podcast fan version, they're designed to mimic the genuine vulnerability, the rawness, and the lo-fi intimacy of those leaked tracks we covered, specifically Mercy's Return.
The visual aesthetic of these fan videos is so telling. They use cassette tape overlays, pixel burn edges to degrade the digital image. You can see open notebooks on the desk, even tear stain overlays on the camera lens.
This raw lo-fi approach is trying to capture the process of his truth documentation, not just the finished, polished product.
By imitating the aesthetic of his most vulnerable, unreleased work, they are proving his humanity survived through their own creations. The Echo archive is generating content that feels more authentic than a lot of official, commercially produced tributes would.
And the ongoing, constantly shifting ARG, the thank you cipher, provides the ultimate illusion that the archive is still alive.
We're seeing these images of flickering, encrypted zip icons and fan posts saying, "It moved again," or "A new file appeared."
It suggests that the source material, that hidden archive on the hard drive he took, is still alive and shifting, even though the architect is gone. The fans have collectively agreed that the archive is still a dynamic entity, still yielding secrets, even if those secrets are manufactured by the community itself.
And the genius here is that the fan action has become so robust, so layered, so decentralized, that it generates new content and new energy completely independently of D.L.B's output.
The Batesian Resonance has successfully created a self-sustaining narrative engine. It doesn't need him anymore.
It doesn't need him to survive.
Okay, so that brings us to the strategic environment. If this is all a form of digital mimicry, how does it actually function as resistance?
Right. The strategic context. The Echo as resistance. We have to briefly go back to the leaks because they serve as these essential artifacts that define the strategic silence. The contrast between the two major leaks that established the foundational duality the fandom embraced.
First, there was the 20-track Angels and Demons, the Hellcut. That massive, ego-driven project with every star imaginable.
The monstrous architect defined by ego and complexity that D.L.B. killed himself. He made sure it failed to escape the vault in time.
And then there was Mercy's Return, the Confession. That small, intimate 6-track project documenting his sheer exhaustion and pain.
And that was the artifact of vulnerability that survived the collapse. It made D.L.B. leave as a human, burdened by trauma, not a mogul burdened by ego.
So the fandom internalized that choice. They rejected the ego of A&D, and they embraced the vulnerability of Mercy's Return as the foundation for their Echo archive.
And that focus on the human struggle is what allowed the resonance to move from the digital screen into the physical world. It created a defiant, living legacy completely outside the label's control.
This is street truth, cultural imprint.
It's how the Echo becomes tangible resistance against corporate erasure. If you can't control the landscape, you can't control the narrative.
The sticker drops are a perfect example of this. They have these defiant quotes on them like, "Even wolves meditate," especially before they disappear.
And the placement is strategic. Near train stops, in club bathrooms, on the doors of bodegas in Dallas, LA, and Seoul.
These are high-traffic, liminal, often gritty spaces, places where people pause and reflect for a second. Seeing that quote in a club bathroom mirror, low-key, printed in black text on silver reflective stock, it forces a moment of introspection that is totally separate from a streaming notification.
It affirms that his silence is a conscious strategy, not a career collapse. It's self-affirmation delivered in public space, designed to be discovered accidentally, not advertised. The medium is the message of decentralized control.
And then there are the mural snaps.
Silhouettes filled with his lyrics painted on unrented billboards, and they're accompanied by the tagline, "He's not gone yet, but the silence already started."
The genius there is using commercial failure, the unrented billboard, this massive, unused canvas, to carry an anti-commercial message. They transform the ultimate symbol of corporate advertising into a canvas for their counter-narrative.
They're subverting the medium entirely. The silhouettes are filled with lyrics, which means the absence of the artist is filled by the substance of his truth. It ensures his legacy is marked physically on the landscape. He becomes impossible to ignore, regardless of his digital vanishing act.
So if we connect all this activity, the shrines, the tattoos, the street art, back to Batesian Resonance, What does it really achieve in this final showdown with the industry?
It achieves the ultimate victory over algorithmic categorization and control. We have to remember how corporate algorithms work, especially with legacy artists. They rely on unified metadata, official links, predictable distribution, consistent branding.
They need a neat, clean story to sell to advertisers and stockholders. A retired legend, a deluxe reissue campaign, predictable data streams.
The Echo Archive actively fights that predictability. It subverts the algorithms by prioritizing what they call authentic human insight and dissonant information. The fan creations are decentralized, often on private servers or ephemeral platforms. They use lo-fi aesthetics that defy the polished commercial standard. They use conflicting keywords, non-official branding.
The algorithm is designed to identify and promote a unified consensus. But the Echo Archive, by being decentralized, aesthetically complex, and just personally meaningful, it acts as the perfect decoy.
The data stream is a mess. The categorization is impossible.
The result is that D.L.B's legacy is going to be defined not by the industry he fled, not by the silence he imposed, but by the community, by the struggle, and by the complex, messy truth he documented.
And the sheer volume and velocity of this fan activity in these final days, it just proves that the architect's attempt at total silence was met with a roar that cannot be muted.
Which brings us to the final moments of this deep dive, just days before the clock runs out.
The core of Batesian Resonance is this profound and I think beautiful paradox. The audience took the architect's final act of control, total silence, the controlled exit, and they transformed it into an uncontrolled, mythic echo archive.
The fandom, not the labels or the algorithms, is definitively shaping his narrative for eternity.
And that leads to the final conflict we all have to sit with. D.L.B. achieved maximum control over his personal integrity by attempting total silence. Yet the profound power and vulnerability of his work forced the fandom to break that silence, to continue the conversation, and to archive the narrative, regardless of his wishes.
He chose silence to protect his truth.
And the fans chose an echo to protect his silence. It's this unintentional, complex feedback loop of loyalty and preservation.
So we want to leave you, the listener, with this final provocative thought as you grapple with the final hours of this entire era.
Since D.L.B. engineered his absence to protect his legacy from being consumed and compromised by the marketplace, what does it mean for the future of art if an artist's greatest success is found not in commercial performance, not in streaming numbers or future royalties,
but in profound strategic silence and the powerful, disruptive echo it generates?
Is the ultimate act of artistic integrity in the streaming age the decision to just walk away, take the hard drive, and entrust your survival entirely to the authenticity of your audience?
That is something to consider deeply as the clock ticks down to January 1st, 2026.
We'll see you at the next deep dive.
Wow.